I'm really looking forward to this interview because we get to chat to all things health and well-being and good supplements and minerals and all of the stuff we need. I'm really pleased that my guest is Rachel Aceso from Nature Provides. And I only came across your brand earlier in the year, Rachel, when you entered our Platinum Awards. And I mean, where have I been? Where have I been all this time? You've got fantastic stuff. I absolutely love it. Just a huge well done for getting that together. We're going to obviously we'll talk more about what you do, but can you just tell us a bit about your story going back? Because most people have got a bit of a story as to how they got to be where they are.
Yeah. Hi, Janey. I'm so glad to be here. It was so lovely to meet you at the awards as well, and really made a connection with you there, fellow Steiner mom.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I went on a bit of a not a direct journey, let's say. My background is actually in theatre, and then I kind of went via various jobs through an investment bank and went traveling to find myself. We do, and really set the intention to find out what it was that I wanted to do, and happened to meet a nutritional therapist. And I knew, honestly, when you just get that feeling, that knowing this is what I'm meant to be doing. So I enrolled on the diploma, returned from my year of traveling, and started my qualification in nutritional therapy. And then started seeing clients, and then children come along, and it's all just busier and more difficult, and you're trying to sort of find ways and see what works for your life. And it was a really kind of serendipitous conversation that occurred. My brother had come back from traveling. My husband and I were having a conversation around, sort of, I was really feeling that supplements that I was recommending to my clients, they were just lacking certain things, or they had too much junk in them. And yeah, Gavin came back from traveling and said, I've discovered this product. It's amazing. It's really helped my health. I'd love to start selling it, but can you tell me more why it's working and the science behind it? And that became our first product. And yeah, it was just one of those things that it was just clearly meant to be, and it just so beautifully.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, yeah, I knew you were going to say that, that when you were recommending products to patients, there's something lacking. And I think it's so important for people to recognize that, you can go into any kind of health store or even, chemist store, and the shelves are chock full with supplements, but they are absolutely not all created equal by any means, are they? And many of them are literally a waste of money, literally.
Oh, at best, they're a waste of money. Absolutely. But, at worst, your body's having to remove this junk, which it then pulls on your nutrient pool. So I always kind of use the example of, you've got different forms of B12, and the most cheap and widely used form is cyanocobalamin. And it's actually attached to a cyanide compound. Now, it's a very small amount. But your body has to remove it. It has to remove the cyanide, which it needs to use certain nutrients to do that, through your liver pathways, and then it needs to convert it into a usable form. So, and these fillers and binders and flow agents, which basically just bring costs down for manufacturers.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I always remember picking up, when I was going away on holiday, I picked up a pack of magnesium, which was allegedly a well-known and pure, in inverted commas, brand, because it was in a small sachet. And I thought, oh, that'll do for my holiday. And it wasn't until I'd been away for a couple of days that I looked at this packet and realized it had aspartame in it. I mean,
oh, wow.
Like a packet of magnesium from a allegedly pure company had aspartame in it. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just incredible, isn't it? So we really have got to be careful. Let's just talk generally then about, when people do start to think about quitting alcohol, whether that's right at the very beginning or maybe a few months in, we start to recognize, oh, hold on a minute, maybe there's an opportunity here to put some good fuel in and to actually look after ourselves. And that's why I run the Sober Club, because it's all about sort of helping people recognize, right, let's live our best lives now without the booze. And that's going to mean leveling everything up, maybe not all at once, but, we're going to have a bit of an upgrade. Most people, even if potentially for the first time, become much more aware of what they're eating. We know when we're drinking, it's all just kebabs at midnight. And when we stop drinking, we can actually start to focus on, okay, what nutrients do we actually need? What's good for us? How can we nourish our body? And of course, in the early weeks of quitting alcohol, one thing I talk about a lot is the importance of balancing that brain chemistry, which is completely out of whack in the early weeks. But as people do start to have a bit of an awakening, okay, I need to look after myself, what are the sort of signs they can look out for? Because it can be very confusing for someone, can't it, when they just think, I know I must need something, but what am I going to go and do? Just stand in the chemist and hope for the best?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a real minefield of information out there. I think even as a nutritional therapist, I really have to step back sometimes and assess it, because there's a lot of contradictory information out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, what an act of self-love and self-respect to kind of quit that alcohol. And I think you're right, when you embark on that journey, it's that first, or maybe not the first step, but one of the steps to really taking care of yourself and having that self-respect and self-love, and reconnecting with the body. You're right, we make terrible food choices when we've had a drink. I know that myself.
Yeah. And of course, alcohol depletes so many of the really important nutrients, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Not to mention knackering our liver,
Absolutely.
I hate to think what was going on with me. I think it's only because I was on, really good supplements that I got, pretty much thrown clear. Otherwise, goodness knows what would have happened to me, because, I was drinking pretty much every day, and that went on for years and years and years. So, I'm very grateful that the supplements managed to keep me going, but nevertheless, there would have been I would have been hugely depleted for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It depletes so many nutrients, and it depletes not only the nutrients, but it affects our gut health. Your whole gastrointestinal tract is there in order to be able to absorb the nutrients from your food, and when that's damaged or impaired in some way, you can't absorb effectively from your food. It affects your stomach acid, which affects the how the body can detach certain vitamins from the food and absorb those.
That's such an interesting point you raised there, because I don't know if you saw a while ago, there was a unbelievably crap article in the press saying, could red wine protect against bowel cancer? I mean, just unbelievable. They were just digging out that stupid study again, that resveratrol, and I mean, for God's sake, have a grape, right? If you want resveratrol.
Exactly. Resveratrol is amazing as an antioxidant, but
I mean, how much red wine would you have to have any benefits compared to what the terrible stuff it's doing to you? It's crazy. I don't know how they can get away with it.
No, exactly. It's attention grabbing headlines, and it appeals to what people want to be told of.
Yeah, well, I did years ago. It's exactly what I wanted to read.
Yeah, and I think you're right. As you regain that clarity in your mind, you can really start to connect with your body again. And the body's always telling us what it needs and wants. But I think when we're kind of numbed down a bit, it's easy to miss those signs and symptoms. Alcohol is well known for depleting magnesium. Of course, magnesium is amazing for our nervous system.
Yeah.
It really is. It's one of my favorite kind of nutrients, to be honest. And a simple and easy sign that you can spot for a deficiency is, you get those little twitches in your eye.
Yeah.
And if it's flickering and that kind of thing, it's a magnesium deficiency often. Another one, you've got the keratosis pilaris. You might know it's like that chicken skin that you get on the backs of arms.
Oh, yeah.
And it's very clearly correlated with a retinol deficiency. So, you can use all the scrubs, exfoliants, and moisturizers as you like, but if you're not getting to the root cause of that problem, you're just effectively sticking a plaster on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what foods can we have as well that help with magnesium?
Oh, so all your leafy greens,
Mm.
predominantly, properly prepared nuts. So, the nuts have they have anti-nutrients in them as well. So you want to be soaking your nuts
Soaking them first, yeah.
and drying them. But yeah, magnesium, it's a tricky one because it's used in so many biochemical processes in the body, over 300. And it's not always coming into our diet as much as it should be,
Mm.
as much as we might need it. And then add to that, we're all incredibly stressed all the time, just that low level of stress that keeps us in a chronic state. And so we're really, going through our magnesium at a rate of knots.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I often recommend a supplement for that one, to be honest. And
Yeah.
it's one of my can't do without.
Absolutely, yeah, me too. And what about the B vitamins then? We mentioned the B vitamins, and I know there's a real link there as well to the kind of alcohol piece.
Yeah, the alcohol, it really affects our folate and B12 absorption and release, and there's a real connection between those two. But if you've got, you might go to the doctors and have your serum, your blood test for B12, and it might show that the levels are fine. Now, the GP's tests, the levels are very different to what a nutritional
Yeah,
therapist is looking
absolutely.
for. But that aside, the levels might look okay. But what can happen is that when the liver's damaged, it doesn't store the B12 as effectively. And so it releases it into the blood. So it looks when you do a blood test, great, I've got sufficient levels, but it's just circulating the blood because it's not been adequately stored in the liver. And you really don't want to mess about with the B12 deficiency. As we get older, our stomach acid decreases, stress really, that also reduces stomach acid. And B12 is one of those, if you don't address the deficiency longer term, it can unfortunately cause irreversible damage.
Mm. But how would we test then, or do you feel that most people need it if you've been drinking?
I think that, a lot of people are deficient, even people who eat meat. Certainly, kind of as we get older and our stomach acid is decreasing, and add to that then the drinking. I
Mm.
think that most people would benefit from some.
Yeah. And then would you say that you'd have B12 separately then, rather than, B vitamins in a multi B vitamin, as it were?
Yeah, I mean, complexes are great. B complexes are wonderful. And of course, all the B vitamins work together, synergistically. But B12 is one of those ones that you can end up on the lower side. And because it's such a crucial one to keep at good levels, we often sort of find that people need a bit of an extra boost of that one.
Mm, mm.
But if you've got a B12 deficiency, you'll notice things like tiredness, slightly lower mood, immune system. It's so incredibly connected with immune health,
Yeah.
which is not often known.
Yeah.
You'll get things later, tingling fingers, the sort of cracks at the corner of the mouth.
Right, interesting. And similarly with something like vitamin D, I mean, again, I remember I've shared on the podcast before that many years ago I was sort of doing talks when my first book came out. I was doing talks around the UK. I was recommending that everyone gets a vitamin D test, and I was sharing the links between vitamin D deficiency and breast cancer, and yet I hadn't had a test myself. And then when I did, my levels were a staggering 12. And I share that on the podcast. Oh my God. And I managed to
Yeah.
get the levels right up, not obviously using the vitamin D tablets that the GP tried to prescribe me, which, by the way, also contained aspartame and God knows how many flavorings, and only had 200 IU of vitamin D. I mean, come on. That would have taken me a good few years to do it, right? I took 3,000 a day or something, and my graph of recovery was incredible. But so, I learned the hard way. But I think there are a lot of people in the UK where, let's face it, we don't get a lot of sunshine, are severely lacking in vitamin D3.
Oh, hugely. And we spend so much time indoors, don't we? But, like you say, we live in the UK. It's not the sun's got to be at the right angle as well. I have a handy tip for people actually, which is quite useful for knowing whether you're synthesizing vitamin D. So the sun has to be at the right angle, and the way you can tell that is by the length of your shadow. So really, you can only synthesize vitamin D from around April to around September. So you can have the most beautiful sunny day in November, for example, but you're not going to be, synthesizing vitamin D. And of course, the sun has so many benefits, and getting outside and grounding and things like that is so healthy.
Yeah.
But when you look at your shadow, if your shadow is the same length as you or shorter, then your body's able to synthesize vitamin D. And it's really important to get out there when it's at that angle, which is in the midday sun, which of course we're told to stay out of, put the sunscreen on. But actually going out there and building up
Yeah,
your.
yeah. I mean, in the old days, they used to call it heliotherapy, didn't they? Sun bathing, and they used to, at kind of health resorts, health farms, as you used to call them in the old days. Part of their prescription was actually patients would literally sit in the sun and sunbathe at midday. That's what they did. I mean, how can we have got it so wrong? It's crazy.
And it really
crazy.
went the other way, didn't it? So people are lathering themselves in olive oil and tinfoil, and there was that, which is clearly,
of course, it's crazy to try and burn. Yeah.
but it's gone too far the other way.
Totally. But what about in the winter then? If we're in the UK, we're not going to get any sun. I mean, I find it hard to believe that kind of, God intended us all just to kind of need to buy supplements. So I can't help but wonder what's gone wrong. Is it that we were meant to be able to get vitamin D from, I don't know, grass-fed butter or whatever, but because things are maybe not quite the quality they're meant to be, we don't get enough? Is that the case? Because it seems that we can't get enough from foods.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of issues. It's like you say, our food is just not nutrient dense enough now. Eating a lovely grass-fed raw butter, unpasteurized butter is so different from, eating a non-organic, hormone-filled animal that's been kept indoors.
Yeah.
And I think that's really key. Eating those foods that are so nutrient dense, the oily fish, mushrooms are also a great source of vitamin D, and like you say, the grass-fed butter. And added to this, my friend, magnesium.
Yeah.
If you don't have enough magnesium, you can't actually use the vitamin D. So
Right.
you can putting it in supplement form. You can have wonderful levels from your holiday to Spain in the summer. But if you don't have enough magnesium, you won't be able to utilize that vitamin D.
Yeah.
And I think it's a little bit like, that feast famine. We're amazing, aren't we? We can go through periods of fasting, and then we can really feast. And with vitamin D, it's stored very effectively in our bodies. So providing we're out in the sun in the summer months for that period of time, really maximizing that intake, then we should have enough stored for the winter. But like you say, you've got to have those foods still coming in, and you've got to have the magnesium there in order to use it. Otherwise.
And what about K2? Because we hear that we should supplement with K2 if we're using vitamin D.
Exactly. During kind of the COVID times, there was advice coming out there eventually about using vitamin D, but it was very much, just you go high on the vitamin D, but actually this is quite dangerous. What vitamin D does is it increases the amount of calcium that the body will bring into the body, that the body will take from its food. But calcium, then it doesn't really know where to go. So what it does is it just dumps it in the soft tissue. And that is also your arteries, which can then lead to atherosclerosis. So what the vitamin K does, K2, is it switches on the proteins in your bones in order for the calcium to be drawn into the bones and to be where it needs to be for good bone health. So it's a really good point, Janey.
So is your one combined vitamin D3 and K2, or two separate supplements?
No, it's combined. I wouldn't I couldn't stand behind a supplement that, that just had the vitamin C on its own.
Interesting. And then, of course, we have to talk about the big one, which is vitamin C, which again, I mean, I don't think it's till recent years when I had a whole load of hideous dental issues, purely down to bad dentistry, which it was only when I was, I needed to have, surgery and stuff that I really realized the importance of vitamin C. And most of us just don't get enough, do we?
No, we don't. And it's, our foods, like we touched on earlier, they don't have the same nutrients that they used to have. But we, generally we're just not eating enough of the vitamin C rich foods. They
Yeah.
sit on shelves for a long time. It's not a particularly stable vitamin. So, it will deplete as the orange sitting on the shelf in the supermarket has been there for a long time. Point of buying it. So I would say vitamin C is another one that's a bit of a sort of a go-to in my supplement cupboard that I
Yeah,
like.
yeah. And tell us about your one, because you do the liposomal vitamin C. Explain what that means to anyone who doesn't know.
Yeah, so liposomal it's nothing new. It's been used for a long time, but in the medical industry as a way of transporting drugs into the cells. So if you think about vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin, but your cells in your body have saturated fat in the cell wall. And if you think about mixing oil and water, the two don't mix together. Well, when you're trying to get this water-soluble vitamin into your cells, it's water soluble going against the sort of fatty layer of the wall of the cell. So what this does, this liposomal technology, is it basically encapsulates the vitamin C in like a lipid bilayer, so like a little fatty liposome, which then enables your body, the fat cell, for it to mix and actually go into the cell, and you can then absorb it more effectively. So
Yeah.
it's about 20 times more effective than just taking, your usual sort of capsules, Berocca, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You're gonna be peeing a lot of it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also there's exactly the same thing with a lot of those kind of fizzing things. You've got a load of other stuff added that you don't need.
Exactly. Yeah. So this
Um,
just gets into the cells and
what
really
what
them.
about? I mean, when we're talking about vitamin C powder, so like ascorbic acid, what's your view on that compared to vitamin C from food? I mean, obviously it'd be great if we could eat enough citrus fruits and broccoli. Broccoli stalks high in vitamin C, isn't it? I always look for the big fat stalks in the
Yeah.
supermarket. But what's the are they equal in terms of effectiveness or not?
You know, I'm a nutritional therapist, so I will always say food first.
Yeah,
And absolutely, that should be your go-to. Make sure your diet is in place first. You don't want to be just sticking what we call kind of green plasters on, with various supplements. And food source vitamin C is awesome because you've got the whole kind of the synergistic antioxidants that work with it. That's
yeah,
really going to help the body to absorb it. But I think that there are times when you need that higher dose of vitamin C, which you just can't get from the food.
yeah,
Uh, so having something like a liposomal vitamin C with a sodium ascorbate or an ascorbic acid can just raise your levels a lot, a lot more efficiently, to be able to then sort of, in those coughs and colds sort of seasons, to be able to fight those things off. And also, I mean, it's great for skin. So
yeah.
it's collagen production. So
Yeah, actually, that was going to be my next question. What's your view on collagen? Taking collagen as we age.
yeah, I mean, I think it's you can get it from bone broth, so you don't have to be buying these expensive collagen supplements. But I think that it helps with joint health, it helps with your skin health, and a lot of people feel better for them. So I think providing you're getting a good quality one that's not got a load of junk with it, Yeah, I don't really see a problem with them. And people do see good, people do
Yeah.
see good.
Well, of course, we must stress that ditching the booze is the best anti-aging secret anyway, or at least you don't care. Yeah, so I mean, there's so much we can talk about. Let's talk about sugar because, of course, that sugar is a really big thing for people when they first ditch the booze. It can that sugar monster can just literally descend upon you, particularly if your diet isn't great, if you're not really loading in all the really good fats and the good nutrients. It's very easy to flip into a cross addiction. So what can we do that supports all of that?
Yeah, as you say, you're losing a lot of sugar from the
Yeah,
alcohol, and it's that habitual thing as well, isn't it, that we tend to replace. But eating protein with
yeah,
every meal is really important for keeping your blood sugar levels balanced. Um, Also, there are supplements that you can take that will help you balance your blood sugar. So actually, there's a study which connects, and I was going to speak to you about this, that connects Shilajit and ashwagandha with basically anti-addictive properties.
all
So
right. Just remind us, for anyone who's not aware of what Shilajit is, just remind us what it is.
yeah, you've probably heard of the ashwagandha,
Yeah,
lovely adaptogen
very
host.
good for relaxation and sleep.
Definitely. Yeah. And Shilajit is an Ayurvedic superfood, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah,
It's made from the mountain itself kind of creates it. So when the mountain was formed, the plant matter that sort of got crushed in it then biodegrades over millennia and it oozes out the mountain, sort of like a sap, if you like. And this is packed with fulvic acid, trace minerals, and numerous other nutrients. Um, and you kind of left with like a sticky black tar. It's got quite a strong taste and quite a strong smell, but it's amazing for, stress. It's amazing for hormone balancing. I take it before the gym because it's really good for energy, stamina, muscle.
so would you take like a spoonful of Shilajit rather than a supplement then?
You definitely don't need a spoonful. It's
Right.
potent. We're kind of talking
I've
like
only
a
ever had
small.
it in a capsule, so
Okay, yeah. So it's a strong potent supplement. So you're looking at sort of a small pea-sized amount.
right.
Um, but yeah, it also helps to manage blood sugar, which is really important for when you have ditched the alcohol. And this study, it found that it had huge potential for anti-addictive properties and helping with the anxiety withdrawal
Yeah.
symptoms. So it increased GABA, which is your neurotransmitter, which helps calm the brain. It increased serotonin, it increased dopamine. So the combination of those two worked really synergistically to support that. So doing things like that can be
So
really.
would you say then you need to be taking some Shilajit and some ashwagandha separately, or is there a way they're combined?
I mean, it sounds like a sales pitch now, doesn't it? We do have one that's combined in
Do
the
you?
cap.
Okay, great, great.
But certainly people could take the Shilajit resin and people could take separately an ashwagandha capsule.
Right.
But individually they also showed the potential. So yeah, you could take one or the other or both and see good results.
And what about the idea of taking something like apple cider vinegar to help reduce sugar cravings? Do you believe that? Do you buy into that?
Absolutely. And it's a great one for increasing your stomach acid as well. So a good tip is to have, a tablespoon, maybe 10 minutes before you eat. And the increased stomach acid will just help you, it'll help your immune system, but it will also help you break down foods and assimilate nutrients from them. So yeah, that can be a great tip.
Yeah.
And I think, just rather than feeling that you're denying yourself all the time, oh, I'm not allowed that cake, I can't have that wine either, and I can't have this. Think about where you can introduce
Yeah,
food.
exactly. What you're gaining.
What are you gaining and how much more amazing do they taste? And when we pack in those nutrients, actually these cravings often come from our body just needing something else.
Exactly. I always say, ask
It needs
yourself, is it
magnesium.
Yeah, is it actually not the energy or the fuel I need at all? It's just some sweetness in my life is all, what I actually need.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, what am I missing? And yeah, I mean, craving chocolate can be a sign of a magnesium deficiency.
yeah,
So it's looking at, I think, rather than denying yourself everything, where can I really enrich my diet and my
yeah,
life?
yeah, absolutely. Well, it's amazing to chat to you, Rachel. I mean, we could talk forever, obviously. I'm clearly fascinated by this topic. But so share with us, obviously, your website and maybe, I don't know, just flag up a couple of absolute must-haves.
Yeah, so thanks for having me, Janey. God, what a pleasure it is to talk to you. Our website is natureprovides.com. And I share generally sort of weekly, fortnightly articles if you want to join the mailing list. So it'll include things like, ways you can spot if signs and symptoms of deficiency. And we know we'll sometimes include new product launches and sort of deals in there.
Yeah,
And yeah, what are my go-tos? I would say for me personally, it's the magnesium
yeah,
is an absolute must.
yeah.
And I love them all because I formulate them. Of course, they're all my babies, and
Yeah,
I
and I mean we haven't even touched on that, but I guess just to say that the that's where you put a lot of your expertise and intention is to making sure that they're not chock full of fillers and crap that you don't need, right? I guess that's
they're not just
that's
off
the
the shelf
uniqueness.
white label, same as the rest of the things you'll find out there. I really put my heart and soul into them and carefully formulate each one. Have I got the best, most bioavailable form of that nutrient? So yeah, I would say yeah, definitely the magnesium and my
But it,
latest one that I'm reaching for every day is my NAC, which would be great actually is great for liver support and
yeah,
detox.
tell us a bit more about that for people who don't know what it is.
Well, NAC, N-acetylcysteine, it supports your glutathione um, production in your body, which is your absolute master antioxidant. It's incredible for detoxing the liver, detoxing heavy metals as well, but would be really supportive after giving up
Yeah,
alcohol.
yeah, brilliant. Amazing. Thank you so much. Well, we'll put that in the show notes. It's been great to chat to you. And thank you so much for sharing your expertise. I really appreciate it, Rachel from
Thanks,
Nature
Jamie.
Provides. Thank you.